Vayehili Yeshua Ozi Vizimrat Yah 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 Vayehili Yeshua. Boker Tov, good morning. We are here with Wisdom Wednesday, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of learning together. It is like a weird day outside. It's supposed to be warm, but it's cloudy, so it feels cool. Yesterday, I was able to break away for a little bit and be at the beach, which was fantastic, although I only got any sort of color on one side of my body. I guess I was sitting facing strange or whatever, or the wind was blowing and just I wasn't feeling like I was getting any color on one side. So anyway, half the mood is party, half the mood is not. And we show up here in this week's Parsha in different parts. And so entitled, they were all looking at the same thing. So we're looking at seeing versus perceiving. And it's Shlach Lecha is the Parsha. Happened to be my brother Spencer's Parsha. And so you always remember bits and pieces of like while you're studying it and learning it together and then working on the Devar Torah, it's like, oh, wait a second. This is like another way we could have looked at it. But, through a 13-year-old's eyes, it was what it was. So seeing versus perceiving, one of the midot is Ein Tova, which is like a generous eye, a good eye. One of the most fascinating things about this parsha is that the spies don't actually disagree about what they saw. And so we often remember this story as if the 10 spies saw one thing and Joshua and Caleb saw another. But that's not actually what happened. They all saw the same land, the same giant clusters of grapes, the same fortified cities, the same powerful inhabitants, the same opportunities, the same challenges. The facts were identical. What differed was the interpretation of what was seen. 10 spies looked at the land and saw obstacles. Well, all the while, Joshua and Caleb looked at the very same land and saw possibility. That distinction is incredibly important because the Torah is teaching us something that extends beyond the wilderness. Much of life is not determined by what happens to us. It's shaped by how we understand what happens to us. The same situation can lead two people to completely different conclusions. One person sees a challenge and says, this is impossible. And the other person sees this challenge and says, this is difficult, but maybe we can get it done. In fact, in both of those scenarios, the circumstances haven't changed. However, the focus and the lens has. So let's be careful. It isn't about pretending problems don't exist. And that's the defining line, is that we need to think like, hold on a second. There are challenges. It's not you saw a challenge and I didn't. It's you saw a challenge, I saw a challenge, but we're choosing to look at it differently. Joshua and Caleb are not naive. They saw the giants, they saw the walls, they saw the risks. But faith is not ignoring the reality. Faith is refusing to let the reality be defined only by fear. The 10 spies focused exclusively on what could go wrong, where Joshua and Caleb remembered something else. They remembered who they were. They remembered that they were not entering this land alone. They remembered that the journey to get them there was a journey that brought them to a place. They remembered the sea. They remembered the manna, the food that dropped from heaven, from the sky, whatever. They remembered the cloud. They remembered the countless moments when the path appeared, when none seemed possible. The difference wasn't what they saw. The difference was what they remembered while they were looking. And that's true for us too. There are moments when we see the obstacles, the diagnosis, the uncertainty, the difficult conversation, the challenges that fall, and the ones that lie ahead. And those things are all real. But the Torah never asks us to deny the reality. But it does ask us to consider whether we're seeing the whole picture or not. Because fear narrows our vision. Fear zooms in, hyper-focused on what's wrong, what's missing, what could fail. But Ein Tova, the generous eye, the good eye, doesn't ignore those things. It just refuses to stop there. I see it, but what? It asks, what else is true? Where is the possibility? Where is the blessing? Where is the strength that maybe I forgot that I even possess? And perhaps that is one of the most important spiritual practices that we can cultivate. Not blind optimism. I mean, there are people that have that. But not wishful thinking, but the ability to hold the reality and the possibility at the same time. If we've learned nothing else in the last 2 years, never mind longer than that, but specifically in the last 2 years, is that we can hold more than one thing at a time. To look honestly at a challenge and still believe that growth is possible. To acknowledge difficulty and still choose hope. To recognize obstacles and still move forward. Because every one of us faces moments when we stand at the edge of our own promised land. Moments when something important is waiting on the other side of uncertainty. The question is not whether there will be giants. They're always there. The question is whether the giants become the whole story. So as we reflect on this beginning understanding of this parsha, we ask ourselves, where in our lives might fear be narrowing our vision? And what possibility might we notice if we allow ourselves to see the whole landscape instead of only the obstacles? That's rough. It's hard. But that's work. And we have to put the work in to see the benefit, the reward, the comfort, the understanding, the acceptance. May we have the courage to see clearly. May we acknowledge the challenges before us without being defined by them. And may we cultivate a generous eye. Ein Tova. It's Ein Tova. The eyes. Ein Tova is the generous eye. Can we see with a generous eye? That helps us not only to see what stands in our way, but also beyond that to see what is possible. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you, and we will continue to show up and to learn and to work together. Thank you for joining me this morning. Suze, Janaba, whoever else is watching that hasn't checked in, as we see the numbers but not the names. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9:30 to continue our connection. Friday morning at 9:30, Friday at 6:30 p.m., Saturday morning at 9:30. Let's continue to look with a generous eye. Ein Tova. Look beyond the obstacle and see the whole picture. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai.